The hate of the left. One thing everybody is aware of, especially people who engage in politics, is a lot of divisiveness in the political arena. The left fights the right, and the right fights the left. Both sides, both sides blame the other, and perhaps there is some truth in the idea that both are equally at fault. However, technically, there is a difference. There is an unequal equilibrium, and we're going to show in this video that the left is the root of the evil that we see. There's two ways we could go here. We could look at all the events within the last 60 years and investigate the actions of each group, see who provokes the other the most, who has the less facts to back up their claim. But there's also another route that we can take, and that is to look actually at what evil is, and to discuss the positions of each group in terms of the nature of evil. We have done a video on sin and evil, looking at the distinctiveness of each category, and what we concluded there is that sin are actions done against the self, and evil impacts other people. Specifically, sin creates costs for the self. When we sin, our actions negatively impact us, and this can, for the most part, be given an economic correlate. We can evaluate how much better off we would be if we weren't sinning. One example, the most prominent perhaps, is having a child out of wedlock, creating a one-parent family, in other words. This is universally agreed to be the most negative or the most impactful thing one can do so far as your economic future is concerned, and it's cumulative in that your children will also have had more negative or less positive outcome simply by having the child out of wedlock. Evil is what we're going to be discussing here, though, and evil is creating costs for society and future generations. So when we do evil, the value of the world actually declines. This can't be measured in a practical sense, simply because the actions of the individual compared to the economic activity going on in the world is too dissimilar. The scale are too unequal. But this does not change the theory. The point is, from a practical standpoint, is that we can scale this down to the level of the group, or what the Bible calls the church. The church is a unique granular economy, and in fact the Bible introduces the idea of the church just to make this kind of calculations possible. The church is the worldwide group of Christians, but it's also the local group. Could be as little as 2 or 3, 4 people helping one another. And if you have 3 or 4 people helping one another and one tries to freeload, this is going to have a serious impact. Getting to the level of the community, if there's a group of people, in this case we're saying these are liberals, that are initiating negative processes and negative conditions within the group, this is going to be measurable and it will have an impact on the group. And we can ascertain what this impact is. So our theory, our proposition is that there is a group of people whose actions have a negative impact on the group as a whole because they are trying to transfer costs onto society and future generations, or more specifically, conservatives. So when we talk about socialism and the left social agenda, what we're talking about is a group of people who are looking at situations in the world, and instead of taking responsibility for these or blaming them on their own or other people's actions, for example having children out of wedlock, they're blaming it on society itself and kind of writing out a check to society to compensate these disadvantaged groups. So the thing with the left and why they end up hating the right is because the right is hindering their idea of social justice. What the left wants and what the left envisions is a blank check, or actually maybe a book of blank checks that they can write on society to the various entitled or victim groups. So the right, by their ownership claims and their basic philosophical outlook, are hindering this process, and they're trying to tear up the checks that are written by the left, because most of these checks are written to the account of the Christian church and to benefit some ungodly group. So this transfer is not being assisted and not being helped, not being promoted by the right in favor of the favored groups picked by the left to be benefited by their largesse, or the checks are writing on the church. The other aspect to this, of course, is if we see a depressed group, say like unmarried mothers, as a victimized group and a group that needs to be shown great compassion and empathy, then why? It's because there's a group that are heartless and mean, callous, and basically evil within the liberals' conception of the idea, that are causing this pain and this suffering, and this is the church. So the atheists hate the church because they have put the sins of the world onto the church and blamed the church for all the suffering of the world, and in their opinion the church must pay the cost. And because the church does not agree with this and does not support this, they are hated. The church is hated then simply because we are not accepting the role of the bad man. And this is why the left hates us. We won't accept the role of evil so that they can justify all the acts that they are doing against the church to benefit their agencies and partners on the left.